If you want to see God and you want to understand the character of God, the character that never changes, the God that is the same yesterday, today, and forever, He's invisible. And He said no man had seen Him at any time and lived, because He's a spirit. He saw different ways He came and spoke to people, but until Jesus. And then Jesus said, when you've seen me, you've seen the Father. It says multiple times that Jesus is the image of God. He's a demonstration of God. He is the manifestation of God. When we look at Jesus and we listen to His words and we see His actions, we see what the true God looks like. And it's interesting, it's very different than so many of the Old Testament stories. And we know that those stories were written through man's perspective, and they're very powerful, and I believe every one of them are inspired to be in that book. There are things we're to learn from. But one thing we do know is that it's written from man and their perception. But He said, I'm gonna show you the real God. I'm gonna come. And He came to earth. And that's when it talks about that Jesus was born in the fullness of time. There was a timing that the things that were spiritual were going to be brought down to earth, and we could see it. We could see God. He said Jesus, we beheld the glory of God through this word that was made flesh. We see the glory. The glory is the manifest presence of God. And so as we look at Jesus, you can see what matters to God. And what's interesting, if you've noticed, one big thing is absent. What you don't find Jesus getting all up in the air about is sin. Yep. You don't see Him focusing on sin. Nope. You really don't even see Him as focused or really too much about even unbelief. Unbelief and sin are the two biggest subjects that the Christian church has evolved in the last 2,000 years, and they have focused on these things. And I love it where Jesus had told the Pharisees, what He said, you have forsaken the weightier matters. You're hung up on your tithe, you're hung up on all these rituals and things, but He said you've left off the weightier matters. You've left off things like mercy. You left off things of justice, and there was 3 of them. I don't remember what it was, but there were things that He said, this is the weightier matters. And when you get the weightier matters first, the other matters just sort of fall in place. Yeah, then you want to give, you want to serve, you want to do the right thing, you want to make right choices, you want to do things, and you definitely don't want to sin, which sin is just being disobedient to your Father. But until you get the big rocks first, until you get the things in that lay the foundation, and what you find Jesus did get riled up in. What did He get riled up about? And He got spit mad. It's when He started using a word called Gehenna, the valley of the son of Hinnom. It's all through the Old Testament. It was a place where the forefathers had actually burned their children. So they caused them to pass through the fire. They would sacrifice their children to false gods, or devils, they called it one place. They were wanting their way, and so they would fall into the heathen way of believing that there was this angry God that needed to be appeased. And so their perception of God was, He's an angry God that needs to be appeased. And so even it's funny, because even all the blood rituals and the sacrifices that they were even instructed to do through the law of Moses, that was a need met for them, because that's how they saw God. And that's, in fact, because in the New Testament He said, I never wanted that. The blood of lambs and goats and sheep and all that stuff, that was never what made Him happy. That didn't appease Him. It appeased you. It was for our conscience. He did those things. But so you see the true God. What was it that got Him upset? What got Him to the place? He's talking about this place this at this point when he's talking. They were no longer offering their children out there to the idols, but it was now a burning trash heap outside the city. It was a place where they dumped. It was the dump ground, and it's where it was a continual burning of trash and things. But he would use this pit as a example to them of suffering and a purification that they understood. They understood it. Now, somewhere down the line, I have no idea why, the people that translated the Bible in English, they took Gehenna, Valley of Hinnom, and translated over to hell. When the Old Testament, every single time hell was used, it was Sheol. It's the place of the dead. And that same word is used in the New Testament. It's Hades, place of the dead. But Jesus never called it the place. He called it Gehenna. But it was a place that he was talking to this. And what made them? Why did he say you're going to suffer Gehenna? Was it because you're sinners? Is it because you're not believing me? You're going to crucify me? You're not going to believe? You're not believing my Messiah? Nope. Look at it. It was a lack of compassion. He separated them like sheep and goats, not because of sin. It doesn't say that. It didn't say he separated them because of unbelief. He said you're separated like sheep and goats, like wheat and tares, all those things. He said because you didn't visit me or help me when I was sick. You didn't visit me in prison. You didn't clothe me when I was naked. He divided them in the left and the right. Some were going to be rewarded and have these great blessings and this eternal blessings, which means spiritual, from the eternal realm is the spirit blessings. And the others were going to suffer a terrible judgment, a terrible consequence, based upon the fact that they did not take care of the hurting. He called them hypocrites. He called them vipers. He said, because you're bad shepherds. You are the ones I put in charge of my sheep. You're the ones that study the Torah. You're the ones that stand up in the sanctuaries and the synagogues, and you teach and you read out of Isaiah and you read out of Jeremiah and you read the books of the old, and you should know. You should know. You should recognize me. I'm sitting in front of you, but you're so wrapped up in the God of this world. Another place he called it the God of your belly. What is the God of this world? Some people think it's Satan. I don't think he's a God of anything. He can be your God, but what he's saying, the God of your belly, the belly is your selfish, physical, fleshly desires. He said, you like your long robes, you like your high seats, you like all the pomp and circumstance that people give you. You like the honor, you like the riches. And you're over here at the same time, and you're over here arguing and trying to make sure you got every little tithe paid. But then he said, you've forsaken the weightier matters. And he was so mad and angry at them. He said, this generation will not pass before all these things are going to happen. He told Nicodemus, if you don't understand, Nicodemus was one of those rulers of the Jews. He said, if you don't understand, if you don't believe in me, you don't understand the Messiah, you're going to perish. He didn't say you're going to hell. He said you're going to perish. Perish is... The outward man perishes as the inward man's renewed day by day. But you're going to perish. You're going to die. And I believe probably he was talking about 70 AD at that time, which most of them did, because it was coming. It was a physical thing. He said it happened before this generation ended in 70 AD, which was 40 years later. A generation happened. It's pretty simple. Jesus was talking to these people, their language. But what bothered him the most was how you treat other people. Taking advantage of other people, not loving, not having compassion. The story of Lazarus, the poor beggar, and the rich man. Why did that rich man end up in a place of torment? Why did Lazarus end up in the bosom of Abraham? We know that's an analogy, because what is the bosom of Abraham? Well, if the bosom of Abraham is an analogy of comfort, then the fire was an analogy of suffering. And so he said, why did that man go? Why did that rich man end up in such torment? He was saying, just touch my tongue. I just need some relief. Give me some water on my tongue. What was that about? Was it because he was doing bad? Was he a sinner? Was it because he was not believing? No, it didn't say that. It said because there was a beggar man that laid by the gate of your house while you fared sumptuously and you was rich and eat all you wanted. You passed that man every day and didn't do anything to help him. Now he's in the bosom of Abraham. He's in a place of comfort and peace because they were both Jews. They're talking both called Father Abraham. It's a picture of the Jews and how they treated each other. That's what that is. Well, I'm not a physical Jew today, but I am one at heart. And what makes the Lord the most angry is not about sin. He took care of sin on the cross. Sin is what harms me. Sin is things that's harmful to me. What makes him really mad is when I hurt people, when I hurt his little ones, when I don't pay attention to the poor, to the widows, to the children, the weak. When I'm so serving the God of my belly, I'm so intent on my life, what I've got to do today, my fleshly desires, that I can actually walk past people and not be moved with compassion. If the criteria for you to be separated sheep and goat is what Jesus said there in Matthew, where are you going to lie? Who'd you visit in prison? Have you ever been to a prison? Oh, I'm not called to that. Okay, well, I don't know, but to figure it out. You talk to him about that. Who are the least of these? He said, you didn't do it unto me when you didn't do it unto them. Or you did do it unto them and you didn't do it unto me. It's a privilege to serve the least of these. It's not always easy. It's not always fun. And it's definitely not anything that you get some natural reward. Most people we've helped, they never could do anything for us in return. We never asked them to. We never thought they would. It wasn't for that. It's because of who we are. It's Christ in us, the hope and the expectation of glory, the hope, expectation of it. God is going to show up in those people's lives, and they're going to see him, and they're going to be changed. And when they're changed, their kids are changed, grandchildren, generations are changed when you see Jesus for who he is and what upsets him. Get off the sin kick, guys. He said, if you walk in the Spirit, you won't even fulfill the lust of flesh. You don't have to be beating people up beside the head and tell them they're sinners. People already know that. They already know that. Well, they don't need somebody else to jump on the bandwagon of condemnation. They're already beating themselves up. And they're already suffering natural consequences. They sure don't need mine. No, they need my love. They need my forgiveness. They need my understanding. And that is what affects them. Love is irresistible. And it's the goodness of God that leads people to turn around, to repent, to change. It's goodness. It's not judgment. I guess God had enough sense to know that when he sent Jesus. We see him for who he is through his son, Jesus.